Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Tuesday, March 15th, 2022, and in 237 days, we will be officially hitting the end of the 2022 midterm election cycle. Hopefully, Georgia doesn't head into a runoff election for the sake of finding out our results very, very early on. But in today's video, as you can tell from the title, we are going to be focusing on two things. Number one, that the Republican Party should be dominating at this point in time, and number two, questioning why they are not. You see, a lot of our discussion has really circled around the United States Senate and the House of Representatives and the governorships, and we have seen many of these races go back and forth. We have Senate elections that 6 months ago were in an entirely different position, where a year ago were in an entirely different position, where just 3 months ago the Republican Party was favored to win 2 additional seats. We go back and forth on these Senate elections, and we honestly really shouldn't be. We've been near obsessing over the redistricting lines, the brand new congressional maps that have been put forth by these states, but really, we shouldn't be. Coming out after a House election in which the Democratic Party only maintained a 5-seat advantage over the Republican Party really tells us that this House should have been a done deal, but it isn't. And it isn't because the Republican Party is not doing as well as they should be. Looking at this House map, the Republican Party, based off of redistricting alone, should have won the majority. Should have been able to advance themselves 5 additional seats. And I don't say that because, Republicans just so happen to luck out when it comes to redistricting. They have a 100-seat advantage over the Democratic Party when it comes down to these new district lines. Somewhere they could find 5 additional seats. And they certainly tried in some states, but were shut down by the state Supreme Courts. For instance, in North Carolina, they tried it, failed. The Democrats actually gained seats. In Ohio, the same thing is about to occur. And across a bunch of other states, Tennessee is really the only major victory. Georgia is the only real area where you see a solidification of Republican seats and an advancement of a Republican seat. But based off the remainder of the map, there isn't much room for the GOP to grow, and they really didn't, because in the new map, the Democratic Party actually gains 11 seats relative to the old one. So looking at our position 2 years ago, in November of 2020, after those election results came out, and after the January 5th runoff elections in the state of Georgia, 2022 should have already been foreseen. We should have known from the very beginning that the Republican Party was going to win control of the House and control of the Senate. But the fact that it is in discussion, the fact that the predicted betting odds put us in a position where the Senate is now about a 4th chance of going towards the Democratic Party, where you have House elections where the Democratic Party has a 1 in 5 chance at winning and remaining in control in the House, 5 seats is all the difference in the House. 1 seat is all the difference in the Senate, yet Democrats have a reasonable chance at maintaining control in both chambers. Isn't that interesting? The Republican Party absolutely should have the upper hand. I mean, it is laughable at this point that Republicans can't lock down Pennsylvania, a state where they have an incumbent. They can't lock down Wisconsin. They can't lock down even Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada, states that they typically win in wave years. Arizona and Georgia specifically, that they won in 2018 in the governor elections, can't even lock down those elections either. What we are finding is that the Republican Party is unable to lock down many of these states, lock down many of these districts, and this is why this video is being created. Because I said from the very beginning I expect Republicans to win control of the House, and I do. I really do. I mean, I have made this argument time and time again. Never once have I said that Democrats are going to win the House in 2022, even when Biden was soaring high. Because as we know, with any standard political year where there is an incumbent president and there is an opposition party, those midterms flip the House, at least in 90% of circumstances. The only time between Bill Clinton and now that did not occur was in 1998 and in 2002. 98 because Clinton was actually benefiting the Democratic Party by being impeached, and because of 9/11, in which the entire nation coalesced around the Republican Party leading into the 2002 midterm elections. Beyond that, every midterm you saw a party switch, whether in the House, the Senate, or both. And 2018 is no different, and 2022 likely won't be any different. But I look back on years such as 2010 or 2014, and I see a generic ballot where Republicans are up at any given point, sometimes higher than they are right now. In 2014, it was a bit different. Republicans were up 2.4 because there were a bunch of polling miscalculations for the Democratic Party, but the final result was Republicans plus 5.7. In 2010, Republicans were up 9.4% nationwide, ended up winning by 6.8%. These elections were predictable. They were predictable because Republicans had maintained such large advantages in 2010 and 2014. Not necessarily on the generic ballot in 2014 as much as 2010, but in the Senate elections that mattered. Arkansas, we knew that was going to go. It was called at poll closing. Iowa, we knew how that was going to go. We knew how many of those 2014 Senate elections were going to go way ahead of time because of polling data and because of our expert predictions. Well, no matter who you look at, whether it's my prediction, whether it's another YouTuber's prediction, whether it's the Cook Political Report, Inside Elections, Sabato's Crystal Ball, whatever you look at, you will find that person after person after person, organization after organization after organization, polling firm after polling firm after polling firm will tell you that the Senate is still in play. And most will tell you the House is very much still in play. Let's do a little bit of a history rewind. I told you about 2014. Okay, let's go to it. 2014 was a year in which the Republicans surged. Surprisingly enough, they didn't win the state of Virginia, but they narrowed down many states. They narrowed down Delaware, decided by 13.6. New Jersey, 13.5. That's Cory Booker right there. Illinois, 10.9. New Mexico, 11.1. Michigan was good for Gary Peters. Minnesota, 10.2. What you are finding is that the Republican Party narrowed down so many states. Interestingly enough, what you found was that looking at the state of Arkansas, that was a flip. It was an immediate flip against an incumbent. This was not some type of, I'm retiring because I'm afraid of losing. You're talking about defeating an incumbent. Arkansas flipped. Louisiana flipped. Alaska flipped. Colorado flipped. Iowa flipped. That's 5 already. West Virginia flipped. That's 6 by 30 points. Looking at this map, insane flips. North Carolina flipped. Let's see if we can find any others. That one was already there. I'm not entirely sure about Montana. I might be wrong about that. South Dakota might have been a flip. Let's just go ahead and head over to the Wikipedia page. But my point being, the Republicans dominated. They won where it mattered. They hit Arkansas, Louisiana, Iowa, South Dakota, Montana, Colorado, Alaska, West Virginia, North Carolina, and the Democrats got nothing. Well, now we're in a position where Democrats potentially could have everything. And that's where the major concern comes in. So moving into question 2. We know based off of historical precedent, based off of what I've shown you, that Republicans should be dominating. They should be up 9 points like they were. And especially when you take a look, I didn't even make this point, especially when you look at Biden's approval rating versus Obama's, again, it is laughable that the Republican Party cannot maintain an advantage like they did in the past. Because when Obama was at this point in time in 2010, going into these midterm elections, on election day, let's go ahead and see here. On election day, Obama was down, maybe 5 points at most, 3.5. And today, Biden is down 8.8, and that's actually a good number for Biden. Yet Republicans were up 9.4 then, and Republicans can't even hit 3? Again, laughable. And I'm not here to, try to berate the Republican Party. All I'm saying is that comparing it to historical precedent, comparing it to historical average, it is not a good number. So now we can move into question 2. Why might this be? Part of me says the Republican Party does not have the image they want. In 2010 and 2014, they had an image. 2010, it was against Obamacare. It was a Tea Party movement. It was a return and a continuation of traditional conservatism that was going to combat the radical decisions by the Democratic Party. Obamacare, believe it or not, was not popular. When you take a look at the way that the American public viewed it, it was never a thing that the American public back then completely adored. Now it might be more so because people have seen the benefits of it and also do not necessarily believe that another plan might be better. But back then, it was a popular position to actually go against it, to return the choice to the American public, even though they very much had the choice. It was a messaging campaign that was extremely effective at swaying public approval away from the Democratic Party. And that public approval moving away from Democrats landed the Republican Party votes. That's not happening now. Republicans don't have a Tea Party movement to go to. They don't have an anti-establishment movement to go to. Trump tried it and lost in 2018. Trying it again in 2022, and the numbers don't seem to be telling us what they sold Democrats in 2018 or Republicans in 2014 or Republicans in 2010 or Democrats in 2006. What you are finding is that Republicans don't have a clear strategy. And looking at the statements that Biden has actually made, I think they are very effective in bringing out the concerns here. What do Republicans stand for? Election integrity? Well, that's not a popular position. Immigration, that's no longer in the top positions right now. COVID-19, that's something that has been, said and gone now that we have the wave over. The Republican Party doesn't seem to be in a position where they have really the majority of the nation on their side. With the looming threat of the Supreme Court getting rid of Roe v. Wade, it is very possible that Democrats start to see a climb in support and a climb in approval because Republicans are taking positions that are unpopular. Another thing I would like to say is that the public opinion on Biden is a little bit different than what we would expect. And not in the sense that this is an approval rating that I think should be different in another type of circumstance. Rather, looking at who might disapprove of Joe Biden doesn't necessarily mean they are inclined to vote for the Republican Party. I've made this point to say that there are some independents, sure, that dislike Biden but will not vote for the GOP because of Donald Trump, because of January 6th, because they believe the Republican Party has become too radical. And those people absolutely do exist. But there is also, on the other hand, voters on the left who might say, I disapprove of the job that Biden is doing, but will also turn around and say, okay, I will vote for a Democrat in the generic ballot. The fact that the Democrats are actually at a position where they are on par with Biden, but Republicans are significantly lagging behind, it tells me practically everything that I need to know. That there is a significant portion of the nation that disapproves of Biden but will not vote for the GOP. And it probably could be a combination of everything. There are voters out there that don't want to associate with the Republican Party. There are left-leaning voters that are skewing the average by saying they disapprove of Biden but will still vote for the Democratic Party. And I say skewing in comparison to what we expect. I think it's a totally valid point to be on the left and say, I disapprove of the Biden administration. I think it's totally valid to feel any type of way about any American politician because that's just how the American political system works. You can have your opinion and it can be praised, disapproved of, but you can still have it. Looking at the way that Biden and the Republicans interact, I think it's just very, very interesting. But my point being that there is something weird going on, that the Republican Party should not be this far down. I think it's just, if I told myself in January of 2021 that Republicans would be in a position where Democrats could potentially still maintain control of the Senate, I might have believed you because of the Georgia runoff elections, but I also would have walked back and said, how is that possible? How does a year and 9 months go past and Democrats are still doing as well as they were in 2021? How do you end up in a position where Democrats maintain control of the Senate? The House I knew was a done deal. My problem with it now is that I don't know if it is a done deal. I am still very confident Republicans will win it. But as I start to see more and more decisions, Supreme Court decisions, forced redistricting, things of that nature, I begin to question it more and more and more. If Democrats truly will come out with the upper hand of a minimum of 11 additional seats relative to their old map, what tells me that they won't be able to pull this off? I still will completely side with the Republicans on this point that I think they will win it, just purely out of the national environment that we are in, with Biden being disapproved of and Republicans up on the generic ballot. But my confidence has dwindled tremendously in the Republican Party. I would have gone to bat for them to say that there is no chance in hell the Democratic Party wins control of the House and maintains it. And at some point immediately following Glenn Youngkin's election, I would have said the same about the Senate. But it has become very clear there is a disconnect. Republicans should be up. We're looking at a number of close races here. You look at the governor's races. Why is Kansas still in play for Democrats? Right? Why is Georgia still in play for Democrats? Why are Democrats up in Nevada, Arizona, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Maine, Minnesota? And sure, it's my prediction. But when you take a look at the Cook Political Report, you don't see much difference. When you take a look at a firm that has so much in terms of reputation by its name, you don't see much of a difference. In 2010 and 2014, whether it was Cook, whether it was Larry Sabato, whether it was inside elections, no matter what you looked at, you saw a very different picture. This is alarming for the GOP. And I think it is just interesting to see that we are now in a position where we are finding these, close and contentious races that otherwise would not be there had the Republicans not been so ineffective in a sense at winning over voters as they are right now. I think, again, once we get closer to the midterms, we will start to see a better picture. I also think Republicans will be able to increase their vote share. But the question still looms, why are they not in this position? I've already told you my reasonings for thinking so. There could be a number of other issues. And now that we are amidst a war in Europe. We are in a position where anything can change our national environment. Questions about Ukraine weren't asked a month ago. Now they are. Questions about COVID-19 came first. Now they don't. Democrats and Republicans seemed to disagree on everything a month ago. Now they seem to agree on a lot of the sanctions against Russia. They seem to agree on, surprisingly, daylight savings time. They seem to agree on many, many issues now when it comes down to international intervention and things of that nature. Of course, there are always domestic quarrels. But right now, the nation's focus is not on Democrat versus Republican, but on Russia versus Ukraine, on the invasion of Russia into Ukraine, and what that looks like and what the United States is going to do in response. President Biden is flying out to meet with other European leaders, not other, but European leaders at a summit, I believe, when it comes down to NATO protection and what they want to do when it comes down to Ukraine, no-fly zone or not. Looks like that's not going to happen, but we'll see what happens. You know, national focus has shifted, international focus has shifted, and it looks like potentially that our 2022 midterms could be shaken up as a result. We've started to see a narrow increase in Biden's approval rating as a result, and I think Democrats also might see a narrow increase as a result as well, but only time will tell. And that will further my point about why the Republican Party doesn't have this position. Well, it looks like a multitude of issues has contributed to the Republican Party's ineffectiveness and inability to take major leads across the nation, and that could very well be to their detriment this coming November. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2022 election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow.